Here is a question that sounds simple, but genuinely is not. How did humans survive for millions of years without cooking a single meal? The honest answer involves a digestive system built for punishment, an immune system running at a higher baseline of vigilance than yours currently is, a set of behavioral workarounds that had nothing to do with heat, and a survival margin that was, by any modern standard, uncomfortably thin. Survival before cooking was not simply a matter of finding food and eating it. It was a constant balancing act between caloric need, mechanical limitation, pathogen exposure, and the raw unpredictability of an environment that offered no guarantees and no safety net. So let us actually walk through what that survival looked like in practice, what physiological and behavioral tools our ancestors had at their disposal, and why the absence of cooking did not simply mean a worse version of the modern diet, but an entirely different relationship with food, risk, and the body itself.
Let us start with the single most important point to establish before anything else. Cooking is, in evolutionary terms, a remarkably late arrival relative to the deep timeline of hominin survival. Our genus, Homo, stretches back close to 3 million years. Modern Homo sapiens have existed for roughly 300,000 years. But the routine, reliable use of fire for cooking appears to have become widespread somewhere between 400,000 and 1 million years ago, with genuine scientific debate over how consistent earlier, more sporadic use actually was. This means that for a truly enormous stretch of hominin history, easily encompassing well over 1 million years, and arguably several million, our ancestors were surviving entirely on raw food, not as some temporary hardship endured on the way to something better, but as the only reality they had ever known, generation after generation, with no conception that an alternative even existed.
Let us begin with digestion, because the human gut, and the hominin gut before it, is really the central character in this entire story. Surviving without cooking meant surviving on food that had not been chemically softened, had not had its starches gelatinized, had not had its proteins denatured, and had not had its pathogen load reduced by heat. Every one of those transformations, which modern humans take entirely for granted, had to be handled by the body itself, using nothing but raw digestive machinery. This placed a genuinely significant burden on early hominin physiology. Raw meat and raw plant fiber require considerably more mechanical breakdown before they can be usefully digested, which is part of why early hominin skulls show such pronounced jaw musculature and such large molars relative to modern humans. Surviving without cooking meant quite literally chewing for a living. Extended chewing time was not a lifestyle choice. It was a biological necessity, consuming a genuinely substantial portion of the waking day simply to extract adequate calories from tough, fibrous, unprocessed food.
Stomach acidity appears to have played a particularly important role in this survival equation. Human gastric acid is considerably more acidic than would be strictly necessary for a diet of cooked, pathogen-reduced food, and this elevated acidity is widely interpreted as an evolutionary holdover from a period when raw meat, scavenged carrion, and untreated water all represented persistent sources of dangerous bacteria. A more aggressive stomach environment would have meaningfully reduced, though certainly not eliminated, the pathogen load reaching the intestines, functioning as a kind of internal defense system, compensating for the total absence of any external one. This raises an obvious and genuinely important question. If raw food carried this much bacterial and parasitic risk, how did hominin populations survive it generation after generation without simply being wiped out by foodborne illness? The honest answer involves real acknowledgement that they did not survive it uniformly well. Illness and mortality directly attributable to contaminated raw food and water almost certainly represented a significant and ongoing cause of death, one additional risk layered onto an environment already defined by extraordinarily high background mortality from predation, injury, and other causes.
Surviving without cooking did not mean avoiding these risks. It meant enduring a level of risk that would be considered catastrophic by any modern public health standard, and simply continuing to reproduce and persist despite it.
Let us turn now to the specific question of caloric extraction, because this is where the absence of cooking created one of the most consequential survival challenges of the entire period. Cooking, among its many effects, dramatically increases the number of usable calories the body can actually extract from food, particularly starchy plant foods, by disrupting the crystalline structure of raw starch and making it far more accessible to digestive enzymes. Without cooking, a meaningful percentage of the calories technically present in starchy tubers and roots would pass through the digestive system essentially unused. This meant that surviving without cooking required hominins to solve the caloric extraction problem through other means entirely. Mechanical processing, pounding, mashing, and prolonged chewing provided some genuine benefit by increasing the surface area exposed to digestive enzymes. Fermentation, whether deliberately managed or simply an unavoidable consequence of plant material left in warm conditions, offered another partial solution. But perhaps most importantly, survival without cooking appears to have depended heavily on prioritizing food categories that did not carry the same raw digestibility penalty in the first place. Ripe fruit, containing sugars already in directly absorbable form, along with nuts, seeds, and insects, all of which deliver fat and protein without the same enzymatic barrier that raw starch presents, likely made up a disproportionately large share of the actual survival diet. Insects deserve real emphasis here because they represent one of the most underappreciated survival resources of this entire period. Termites, ants, grubs, and beetle larvae required no cooking to be both nutritionally dense and mechanically easy to consume. And comparative studies of contemporary chimpanzees document extensive tool-assisted insect foraging that likely mirrors strategies our own ancestors relied on for a very long time. Insects were reliable, available across most of the year, and demanded relatively modest foraging effort for a genuinely significant caloric return, making them a quiet but essential pillar of pre-cooking survival strategy. There is also the question of organ meat, which deserves specific attention because it solved two survival problems simultaneously. Liver, kidney, brain, and bone marrow are considerably softer and more mechanically manageable raw than muscle tissue, while also delivering extremely concentrated nutrition, particularly fat, in a form the body could use with minimal processing. Bone marrow in particular appears in the archaeological record through deliberate percussion marks on animal bones, consistent with hominins actively breaking bones open specifically to access this dense, easily consumed source of concentrated calories. Surviving without cooking often meant prioritizing exactly this kind of food, softer, richer, and more immediately usable than tough muscle tissue.
Let us also consider the specific survival challenge posed by water, because this connects directly to the broader question of surviving without fire and is easy to overlook when the conversation focuses narrowly on food. Boiling water eliminates the overwhelming majority of waterborne pathogens, an option simply unavailable to any hominin population before reliable fire use. Drinking from rivers, ponds, and streams without any equivalent purification method meant that waterborne illness represented a persistent, unavoidable survival risk, running in parallel with the food-related risks already discussed. Choosing water sources carefully, based on accumulated experiential knowledge about which sources tended to cause illness, would have represented its own significant cognitive and behavioral demand, layered on top of everything else required simply to eat. This brings us to what might be the actual core of the whole survival story, which is that behavioral flexibility, not any single anatomical advantage, appears to be the real explanation for how hominins survived this period at all. Early hominins were not particularly fast, particularly strong, or particularly well defended against predators. What they seem to have had, consistently, was the capacity to assess available resources strategically, adjust dietary reliance based on seasonal and geographic conditions, use simple tools to overcome mechanical processing challenges,
and tolerate a level of ongoing risk that a less behaviorally sophisticated species might not have been able to manage at all. Seasonal variation made this behavioral flexibility genuinely essential, rather than simply useful. In tropical forest environments, fruit and insect availability remained relatively stable across much of the year, easing the survival burden considerably. In savanna environments, dry season scarcity would have made meat, marrow, and underground storage organs disproportionately important, precisely because they remained accessible when more easily digestible plant resources became scarce. Surviving without cooking, in other words, was never a single fixed strategy. It required populations to shift their entire approach depending on where they happened to be living and what that specific environment happened to offer at that specific moment. There is one more strand worth pulling before closing this out, and it concerns the question of energy budgets more broadly, because surviving without cooking appears to have placed a genuine constraint on something far larger than day-to-day nutrition. The expensive tissue hypothesis, developed by researchers including Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler, argues that the human brain's unusually large size became metabolically possible specifically because the human gut shrank in compensation, a shrinkage widely interpreted as a consequence of cooking reducing the digestive workload that a larger, more ape-like gut had previously been required to handle. If this argument holds, then surviving without cooking meant operating under a genuinely tighter metabolic ceiling, one in which the energy available for brain growth remained more constrained than it would eventually become once cooking entered the picture and freed up additional metabolic room.
Let us also briefly consider what contemporary comparative evidence tells us about the real cost of this kind of survival strategy. Because studies of modern individuals who deliberately follow strict raw food diets have documented measurably lower body mass index, and in women specifically, increased rates of amenorrhea, generally attributed to insufficient caloric intake relative to what a cooked diet would provide. This is genuinely useful evidence because it confirms that surviving without cooking was not some secretly optimized natural state that modern humans have unfortunately lost. It was a harder, more metabolically marginal way to live, one that hominids endured for millions of years, not because it was ideal, but because it was the only option available. Wild chimpanzees offer one more genuinely valuable window into what this kind of survival can actually look like in observable practice, rather than reconstructed indirectly from fossils. Long-term field studies have documented chimpanzee diets incorporating well over 100 distinct plant species at some research sites, supplemented by insects, opportunistic meat through both scavenging and coordinated hunting of smaller primates, and careful seasonal tracking of which resources are worth pursuing at any given time. This level of behavioral sophistication in a living, observable primate species, entirely without fire, provides real supporting evidence that early hominids were capable of comparable or greater strategic complexity in managing their own survival, long before cooking became available to them.
Bringing this back to the central question, how humans actually survived without cooking food turns out to have very little to do with any single trick or adaptation, and a great deal to do with an entire interconnected system of physiological tolerance, strategic food prioritization, environmental knowledge, and sheer behavioral adaptability, operating continuously across millions of years, with no guarantee of success and no safety net beyond the next generation's ability to do it all again, slightly better than the one before.